What is up YouTube, it's Kingfisher745, and in this video we're going to cover Kuurth with Cloak and Dagger. Really similar to the last Cloak and Dagger video where we featured Enchantress with them. Since everything else is basically the same, I'm just going to tell you what we're using on Kuurth, and that begins with the Rising E-ISO. Now you don't have to use this one, I actually go with it because I bought it and I try to get my use out of it, but if you have her other E-ISO, feel free to use it. More importantly is going to be what we have on our level 1 and 6. So when we move to her level 1 ability, you're going to see what she has in common with Cloak and Dagger. The Dazing E-ISO gives her Brawl or Stonebreaker, Exploit Stuns, and Exploits Delirium. So there's the connection. For now we have the Thorned E-ISO in our level 2, and although usually I use the Lethal E-ISO in our level 6, since we have that on Cloak and Dagger, we're using the Ailing E-ISO 8. That grants Endemic. In other words, the AI won't be preventing or removing our debuffs when it comes to Delirium or Attrition. That should make us golden. So on to our very first matchup, it's going to be Angerer and Gnaw. And it looks like their agent's going to start it out by using the Dark Energy Blade, which he'll soon regret. And it actually gives my agent a turn as well. So I'm going to use Smothering Shadow, then the Neurotrope to buff Cloak and Dagger. Don't get me wrong, it buffs our entire team. But we're focused on giving them rising up buffs as soon as possible, and with that, they'll do a lot more damage on their shot in the dark. So let's see how well the Neurotrope treated us. Okay, so we got Agile, Recuperation, Combat Awareness, Epiphany, Fortified, and Strengthened. This should be pretty sick, and it nearly one-shots their entire team that fast. I almost feel bad for this one, but let's just go ahead and finish off Angerer and call it a match. So there we have it, and we all know Finest Hour is pretty huge. That's why I announced in the past, and on the podcast, that I'm definitely going to be using them with Heimdall. That was always a thought. Anytime you see Finest Hour on an ability, you have to thank him. The Neurotrope though is a pretty solid substitute as you can see. But we'll try to have a few other team-ups as well. As usual, we'll have 3 different team-ups in the next All Hail the King, and that's where we'll look at the Finest Hour aspects a bit more. Now in our second match, we went against an Invisible Woman and Kuurth team up, and of course Force Field is supposed to prevent debuffs, but we already placed Endemic on them, so they won't be stopping ours. Once again, I may have to feel bad for this match, but for now we just went ahead and put Smothering Shadow on them, and then I'm going to use the Blackest Void as well. I figured why not. We held the Neurotrope, and that's because the enemy agent's going next, and he may just remove our buffs. Which is exactly what he would have done. So on our next turn around, that's what we're going to use. But first, let's try to use our Blackout. And of course, Mind Control stops it. Pretty unfortunate. That's a big setup move, not for just Cloak and Dagger, but Kuurth as well. So not having that definitely hurts. And we have Despair on it, so it's even more valuable to us. I would actually not recommend putting Despair on it. Maybe you should put Endemic instead. And that's just because you don't want it getting stopped by Mind Control. That full team Despair is way too important for that. So you probably should switch it around so Kuurth has it, and or bring in the Ionic Devourer. On Kuurth's turn however, what we're going to do is use Love Meat on Invisible Woman, and then she takes some dot damage, and actually has to skip her turn because of Cower. My agent's now free to use the Neurotrope, and they shouldn't be able to remove it. So we'll use that first, followed by Baron Mordo to try to knock out the enemy agent. Instead, he's facing the wrong way, so that means he's going to actually shoot our own teammate. I tend to have bad luck with Baron Mordo. I'm starting to think he's working for the other teams. So I guess in this case, we'll just use the Light Fantastic and hope that Cloak and Dagger can get off their next attack. If the enemy agent has another scroll or something. Okay, they use the Femme Fatales on Kuurth. They're going to get a second hit, but that causes retaliation, and Stonebreaker lights him up. The bad part is they didn't have Despair, so back for more procs and keeps him alive. There's not too many things more frustrating than that. He took all that extra damage and just ignores it. So missing that Despair is a huge, massive key thing. It can make such a difference. In this case, we should be fine, especially after these counterattacks. And my agent's Brawl drops him. But in other cases, it could cost us the match. Anyways, on Cloak and Dagger's turn, we're going to use Child of Darkness, and that's going to restore our HP, plus it should remove our debuffs. And we only have Rune of Fear and Pheromones left. Then we're going to go ahead and attack. We'll go with our level 1 on Invisible Woman. That or a Shot in the Dark, I'm not sure. Okay, but Cower stops us. At least on their turn, the Breaker of Stone attacks their own teammate, and that breaks her shield too. And on Kuurth's turn, we're going to go ahead and exploit Delirium. Now watch this Stonebreaker. A massive, over 80k damage hit. Kuurth when pumped is no joke. That exploits Delirium is actually serious business. Following that, we're going to summon magic, and then recharge. And hopefully as a final act, or near to it, we can use our Pitch Black. Well, it didn't look like it was going to do that much damage. So we haven't seen Child of Light yet, and I actually want to go ahead and use that. Following that move, we only have the option of a Shot in the Dark. So instead, we'll go with Bright Blades. And Kuurth ends up going down to dots, so nothing big as a final hit. But Kuurth did absolutely light up Invisible Woman. So we at least had that. For our final fight, we're going to end up facing another Gnaw and Angerer team. But this one may be a little bit tougher. I don't think we're going to one-shot them. Then again, we don't really have the right setup. Or do we? I guess it depends on if their agent's going to remove our buffs, and if we're going to be bold enough to use the Neurotrope right before his turn. I'm not sure. One thing I do know now is since Gnaw used an early World Breaker, we have to take him down at the very least. We're going to begin with the Smothering Shadow. Due to Endemic, we can ignore the Mystic Shroud. Then onto the Neurotrope debate. They certainly have the cube, which we figured. So we're not going to gamble, we're just going to use the Blackest Void. Honestly, before I even do this, I'm second guessing it. But we do skip using the Neurotrope for that first round. Sometimes you just end up kicking yourself either way. And wouldn't you know it, the agent's affected by Cower. But on his next move he uses the Mystic. Well, this kind of changes things a bit. We could have used an early game Shot in the Dark and maybe knock some people out. Instead, we're going to use our level 2 Blackout and hopefully place Despair. It also causes their agent to punch Gnaw, but he misses both hits. Still though, it's going pretty well. He's going to have to skip his next turn. And I'm sure we got some pretty nice debuffs, most importantly Despair. Following Gnaw's turn, it's going to be Kuurth's once again, and we're going to use Love Me on Gnaw. Like I said, he's going to be our primary focus. I really hate Meteor Swarm. It's so overpowered. Hey, and Cloak and Dagger get a preemptive Blinding Light counter, and they also attack with Bright Blades. It's about time we saw some passives. Oh, and you know what? The preemptive counter, well, one of them is because they have the Covert E-ISO, and there's an enemy tactician. Alright, so that was pretty awesome, a double preemptive counter. Now with our agent, we're going to summon Scarlet Witch and hex the enemy team. Plus, she does quite a bit of damage. Luckily, Angerer didn't stop it. So after recharging, the enemy agent goes down to dots. And with Cloak and Dagger, we're going to pull out a Shot in the Dark. It's a huge finish. Absolutely massive. And that's a great way to wrap this video up. So I do hope you all enjoyed it. I want to thank you for watching. And ask you to please like, comment, and subscribe. Then until next time, good luck, and take care.